So, you've decided to apply to university in an English-speaking country. Could the Duolingo English Test be your key to success? Let's find out. I'm Francis from Last Minute English, and this is your how-to guide for getting a great Duolingo English Test score that opens the door to your university. Now, before we start, it's important to know how exactly the DET can help you. So, if you're applying to a university in an English-speaking country and you're not from an English-speaking country, the university will probably ask you to prove your English level. Now, for many years, you would do that with exams like IELTS and TOEFL. But these days, another exam is becoming more and more popular, and that is the Duolingo English Test. So let's take a look in detail at the DET and see how it's different to those more traditional exams like IELTS. So DET is becoming more and more popular with colleges and with students. And right now, when I'm filming this video, it's accepted at more than 4,500 universities around the world. And it's popular with students for three main reasons. The first one is it's pretty cheap. So it could be as little as $49. Now compare that to IELTS, which is usually more than $200. It's pretty affordable. Also, it's quite quick because it's online. You can get your results in about 3 days, and you can send your results to as many as 40 universities for free. And the DET make it very easy for you to send those results. All you do is you log into your DET account and you click on the results link, and then everything is clear for wherever you want to send it to. Now, in your results, the thing that's very useful for you and for the university is the breakdown of the results. So Duolingo English Test is divided into 4 areas. We have literacy, comprehension, conversation, and production. And each area covers 2 of the different skills. So the skills are reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And the interesting thing is that the universities will keep an eye. They'll look carefully at each section of your results, at each of the 4 areas, and compare that to the course that you've applied to. So let's start with literacy. Literacy tests your reading and your writing skills. And of course, those are very important for studying in a university in an English-speaking country. Because when you're in college or university, you'll be reading lots of different texts, probably all in English, and you'll be writing reports or essays all about the things that you've read. So let's think about reading first, that important skill. And here are some quick tips to help you get the best possible score in the reading questions on DET. The first one is to read the question carefully. Of course you should read the question carefully, but it's a very stressful situation. You know, you have a limited time and the timer is counting down on the screen. But if you don't read the question carefully, that's the quickest way to make a big mistake and lose points. So make sure you read the question carefully. The next step is to improve your skimming. So skimming is where you read a text quite quickly. You're not looking at the details. You just want to get a general idea of what this text is about. And another really important skill is scanning. Scanning is when you know exactly the piece of information that you need. For example, maybe you need to find a number, like the price of something, and you're looking through a text and you're looking for that number. So skimming and scanning are both very good tricks to help you answer questions faster and better on a reading test. So that leads us to the 4th tip, which is practice a lot, okay? And don't just practice reading things in a very general way. Practice those skills. Practice skimming one page and then See if you can explain what the page is about. Practice looking for numbers or looking for names, looking for information in a page. And the more that you practice, the better your skills will be. And of course, the better your score will be. Next, let's talk about writing. So writing in the DET is always typing. There's no pens, everything is online. And it's a really important thing for studying abroad because, as I said, you're going to be writing reports and essays and other types of things. So you have to have good English writing skills. So let's look at some quick tips for writing. The first one is the same. Read the question carefully. It's the same logic, right? If you don't read the question carefully, you'll write the wrong thing. And then the whole time is just a waste of time. Next tip, try to make your grammar interesting. Try to include different types of sentences, some long, complex sentences and some shorter sentences. You don't have to make everything long, and you definitely shouldn't make everything short. Using a mix makes your writing much better to read. And finally, make sure you use all the time that you've got. So if your writing section is 5 minutes and you've finished after 4 minutes, you finished writing, read your answer again. Read it out loud. And that way, you'll find those little mistakes that can be the difference between an okay score and a very good score. And we call that proofreading. Make sure when you've finished writing, you proofread your own work. So we've talked about literacy. Now let's look at comprehension. So comprehension includes your reading, which we've already looked at, and listening. So it's how you receive information and can you understand that information. And of course, for living in a foreign country and going to lectures and reading in English all the time, comprehension is super important. So in the DET test, there are lots of different listening question types, but I've got some general tips that can help you to improve your listening score. The first is to, before your test, get familiar with different accents, because the DET has a range of different accents from English-speaking countries. For example, the American accent, actually there are lots of accents in America, they're very different to British accent, and that's very different to Australian and South African and Canadian and Irish. So there are many different accents. So if you're only familiar, for example, with an American accent, it could be a big shock when you get to the exam. And my other tip is to practice your active listening. So sometimes when we're listening to, let's say, the radio or something, it's background noise. We're not really focused on it. But to get ready for your exam, you have to listen to English in a very active way. And the thing that I like to do when I'm practicing my Spanish is to listen to something and have the goal of explaining it to someone else afterwards, okay? So you listen with a purpose. For example, if you're practicing listening to a podcast, listen for 5 minutes and then write down what they talked about. Listen for another 5 minutes, write down what that 5 minutes was talking about. This is called active listening, and it's a great way of improving your listening skills. Now let's talk about the conversation section. So this is about your speaking and listening skills, just like having a real conversation. And again, universities will focus on this because when you get to the university, you'll probably do like work with your partner, you'll do group activities. So being able to talk to people and understand them is super important. Now, in the DET, there are several different types of speaking question. Some of them are conversation questions, and some of them are production questions. But let me give you some tips for speaking in general in the DET. The first one is to speak clearly. Try to speak in a big, loud voice, because it's not a person who's listening to you, it's an AI who's listening to you. So you have to make sure that the computer can understand you. So big, loud voice. Don't Don't mumble like that. And you can also take a moment before you start speaking just to think, okay, what am I going to say? Don't take 30 seconds, but take 1 or 2 seconds. Don't go and start straight away. Take your time. And the other tip is to focus on natural conversations. So because of the way that DET is organized, it's very hard to prepare your answers, to memorize answers. So instead, it's important to practice before the test, talking to people and really having real natural English conversations. So you could try to find an English teacher, find a language partner, or even just talk to yourself. But make sure you're practicing and practicing so that your fluency improves and you feel more confident. Then the final section is production. So production includes your writing and your speaking. And this is more like making a speech or answering a long question, that kind of speaking, not so much a conversation speaking. This is important for universities because you'll make presentations in your classes and you might be asked to give a speech to the whole university, which would be a pretty scary thing. But anyway, let's talk about some quick tips because we've already talked about speaking and writing. So first of all, read the question carefully. Speak clearly if it's a speaking question. Make sure that they can understand you. Use the time that you have to plan your answer. Try to make it as logical as possible. If it's writing, use the full time and check your answer afterwards. And for speaking and writing, make it interesting. Try to include different types of sentences and different types of vocabulary. So there we go, a very quick run through of how you can improve your Duolingo English Test score and get it ready so that you can apply to whichever university you want to go to. If you're new to the DET and you want to know more about it, including which universities accept DET and what score do they require, we have a PDF guide. It's available on our website. The link is just down here, and it's available totally for free. So check that out. I'm Francis from Last Minute English. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck on your DET, and I'll see you next time.